Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about politics. Mm, I know this is not a popular topic, but I think we have to talk about it. It should be, it's part of our lives, and it should be part of our lives. Um, when I grew, when I grew up, I uh, gravitated towards. So first of all, let's clarify. The two big groups, the left wing and the right wing. The left wings, the left wing is usually the liberals or the Democrats, and usually the right wing is the conservatives or the ones who don't like. So the left wing is supposed to be about progress and change and freedom, and the right wing is supposed to be about mainly about tradition and and traditional values, and just don't no progress is usually not so good. Uh, and obviously these are not black and white things, so you can have overlapping thoughts and ideas and concepts on both sides, but these are the major uh, principles of each side. So when I don't know if you guys, if you watched a few videos of mine, you by now already know that I am quite a progressive individual. I always tried to push. That's just a mindset I had since I was born. I always try to push things forward. I always try to test limits. I always try to go further, expand my horizon, grow, learn, uh, and because of this, it was an obvious choice for me to go with the liberals. And it's not even about like the specific programs, like how they trying to manage a country, or what their fiscal policy is supposed to be, but it's more like the principle, the core principles. If we agree on the core principles, then the details I really don't have much to say about it. I'm not a professional in many areas, so how would I know? So usually I thought that if I can agree on the core basic principles with a certain party, then I can definitely support them about in general where they were trying to take the country. And because of this, I was very progressive. I was very much a very vibrant individual. So for me, going with the liberals was an obvious choice. The cultural. So usually, I think the if you're young and you are going with the conservatives, based on my experience, that's usually because your family is a conservative, or your family supports conservatives, and then they raise you in that context. If you're The way I saw around me is that if your family don't have much of a political preference, then and you're a young person, then you usually go with progressive or Democrats, because that's typically young people are progressive, and they want to question everything and push things forward, even if it requires radical moves. So it was not really a unique thing that I went with liberals, but over time, and by the way, yeah, I wasn't someone who just didn't give a damn about politics. I was very much involved in that, because I agreed that we're living in a system where politics and democracy gives you the freedom to vote, and in order to have your own voice, or your own opinion about the future of your own country, then you have to participate. So you have to be active to some extent in that area. So because I see that most of the time you have to convince young people to get active in that field, because they are just they don't care. But for me, that was not the case. I was naturally, or I might say organically, involved in that area. So I became a somewhat of a liberal, I might say. And liberalism for me, it was like about freedom. It was about accepting others. We don't have, not thinking about uh, whether we are just human beings, instead of like what our cultural background supposed to be, like nationalism. Uh, and interestingly enough, I thought that's a more accepting more accepting worldview compared to conservatives who are trying to protect their own values and their own or cultural tradition. And uh, even though I was paying attention to all the political parties, all the political debates, the participants within each sides. And interestingly enough, at some point I stopped being. I'm not saying I stopped being a liberal, but I definitely stopped supporting liberal politicians, because I had to realize, to my utmost surprise, that liberals are way worse when it comes to um, judging people with different opinion, compared to conservatives. And to me, that was absolutely striking, because that's exactly the opposite what you would expect from a liberal party. And for a long time, this was not obvious. And the reason why it was not obvious, because as I was wandering around liberal circles, usually what liberals do is that they isolate themselves from everything that's not liberal. And because of this, you don't have a visibility to what's out there beyond liberals. And for example, most liberals I know are criticizing non-liberals without any knowledge of the field. They just hear other liberals' opinion and criticism, and they just repeat it as their own opinion. That was my experience. And because I felt like I'm a somewhat open-minded person, or at least I'm trying to be stay open-minded as much as possible, I started to pay attention to the other side as well occasionally. Like I really felt like, okay, you guys told me not to go to the other side and listen, because you already told me how bad they are and how stupid they are and how they are just not good enough. And we represent progress and we represent the change for the good, why they are just holding us back. So that's the basic mentality on the liberal side. And I started to pay attention on the conservative side. And by the way, one very interesting technique what liberals are using, they are mocking the other side. They're making fun of the other side, and they're not arguing with the. They are not arguing. They just they are discrediting the individual who made the argument, which by the way works, because for a long time, because of this, I also, now I know this is not a nice thing to do, but I also discredited a lot of people on the right side, or on the Republican conservative side. And after a while, I just started to at one point I got to a stage where I was like, okay, so I know who I am, I know what my party preference is, etc., etc. But for just to look, because of the curiosity, I want to just peek into the other side. I want to have first-hand experience of what they are like, because we heard, when you grow up in a family and you hate the other family, but you never met them, you really don't know what kind of people they are. You don't know if they're good or bad. Only thing, you assume they are bad because that's what you kept hearing while you grew up, and you have a lot of horror stories about like what they are like, but you never met them. You don't have a first-hand experience. So that's how I felt. And after a while, I decided that I want to have this first-hand experience my own. I want to experience what they are like. I heard they are monsters, right? But I never really paid attention to them. And so what I did, I started to pay attention to both sides. And interestingly enough, those people who supposed to be stupid and who's supposed to be monsters and who's supposed to be enemies of democracy, the conservatives on the right wing, they most of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them were pretty reasonable and pretty nice. They were very articulate. They were very interesting, and they had fair points when they were making their arguments. And to me, that was the first thing when I said, okay, this is interesting. Now, I have to review my position on who am I supporting and what am I. I'm still I still feel like I'm liberal, but I feel like those people who consider themselves liberal, they're not liberal. That was my realization. Like those people who claim to be liberals, they are way more ruthless. They are way more brutal when it comes to eliminating anybody who disagrees with them, which is to me is absolutely mind blowing. This liberalism should be about accepting other opinions and respecting other opinions, even if you disagree. But that was something that I completely that was something I haven't experienced on the liberal side. So I started to pay attention on conservatives, and interestingly enough, they were nice people talking about nice stuff. And even when they had something to say that I disagreed with, they were not animals. They were not monsters. They were not brutal. They were not harsh. We just disagreed. And to me, after this happened to me, going back to the liberal side and just keep listening to the liberal pundits and liberal politicians keep mocking the right side, the conservative side, was just absolutely disgusting. So to me, that was, and by the way, very interesting thing. The liberal side also brutally eliminates anyone on the liberal side who disagrees with them. So there's a one mainstream chorus that you have to be part of. Otherwise, you're out. They can revoke your liberal a pass, which is unbelievable, unbelievable. I saw this many cases, and I couldn't believe that this is happening. Like they even you know eat their own if it comes to disagreeing just a slight little bit of the mainstream opinion that they're supposed to repeat. So yeah, so after that, I started to pay attention more and more to conservatives, and I felt like I can relate to these guys in many ways, even with the disagreements that we have occasionally, and also because I saw as an out now, but at this point I considered myself as an outsider, because before that I was definitely an insider of the liberal circles, but after that I considered myself as an outsider. I felt like I have to distance myself from both parties, zoom out a little bit, and just try to look at what's going on. And the way the liberals were keep mocking and discrediting the people on anywhere who are not liberals, so-called liberals, by the way, was just absolutely disgusting to me. And it's especially because they are called liberals. If they are not called liberals, if they are called, I don't know, Star Wars Party, and they do this, then, I don't care. But if you are called liberal and you have the least tolerance for anybody who disagrees with you, then this is a very, very, very bad case for you. So that was my experience with liberals and conservatives. And even though I think I'm still more of a liberal than conservative, I always had conservative values to some extent, but I'm still mainly a liberal, progressive in person. But I just know that as of today, those people who represent liberalism, those are people who I really just can't relate to and can't support. To me, that was very, very interesting to experience firsthand. So yeah, this is something I wanted to share with you guys. My experience of being a progressive thinker and my disappointment on the liberal side, or the liberal representation politically. I don't know. What do you think, guys? I want to know your opinion. So just please drop it in comments. Thank you.